check out our streaming schedule for this week. We've got tons of content in terms of the NFL and college football, as we're going live just about every single day this week. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single moment where we go live. And now, on with our feature presentation. This player right here is Pittsburgh Steelers defensive back Brady Keys. And all things considered, for a 14th round draft pick, he was not bad at all. When you get taken in the 14th round with pick number 162, at that point, it's a complete crapshoot as to whether or not the player is even going to see the field, let alone be any good. At the 1960 NFL Draft, there were 12 players taken in the 14th round, and 6 of them, so half of them, didn't even play a single snap in pro football, being remembered for just the fact that they were drafted and nothing else. So the Steelers already beat the odds with Keys being able to play. However, they beat the odds even more considering the fact that Keys was a pretty good player. Keys played in the NFL all the way until 1968, lasting roughly a decade in the league, and he started 81 games for Pittsburgh during that time frame, recording 16 interceptions. During the 1966 season, Keys not only led the Steelers by picking off 4 passes, but for his contributions on a defense that forced a ton of takeaways in the passing game, finishing 4th in the league in interceptions, Keys even made it to the Pro Bowl, which is a pretty high honor. Is Keys a Hall of Famer, or a Hall of Very Good player, or a guy remembered fondly today for his on-the-field stuff? Not at all. Having said that, even though there weren't a lot of bright spots on the Steelers in the 1960s, Keys was someone on those teams who could play at a high level at times when called upon. And if you want to learn more about the old-time history of the NFL, and players like that you probably have never heard of before this video, then this is the place for you, because we talk about all things NFL history on this channel with a new video every single day. So if you like that sort of stuff, then be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. Thanks in advance for your support as we try and hit 70,000 subscribers. However, even though Keys was a very good player at times, and was an incredible businessman, owning a ton of KFCs after he retired, he did have his moments where he got beat, as every cornerback does. Some of this, understandably, was on him, and some of this was the receiver beating him straight up. However, some of this had to do with abysmal coaching. In 1965, the Pittsburgh Steelers went 2-12 thanks to their man in charge, Mike Nixon. And if there was ever a game where the stupidity of Nixon and the coaching staff was on full display, it was a battle against the Dallas Cowboys. Because if you're going to have someone cover the best receiver in football and the biggest game changer in the sport, maybe it's not a good idea to have a guy in Brady Keys on him who is badly injured and who everyone knows is badly injured. Yep, that's exactly what happened. And nearly 60 years later, in honor of the Cowboys and Steelers playing tonight, if you're watching as of this video getting released, it deserves a deep dive today. Because this is the story behind what might just be, quite possibly, the dumbest defense in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before I talk about the actual defense in question, we need some context to understand the receiver that was the focal point of the conversation, since every cornerback needs a wide receiver to go up against. This man right here is Bob Hayes, and to say that he was really freaking good would be putting it lightly. There are some players in the NFL that come onto the scene immediately and play well. These are guys like Randy Moss and Saquon Barkley and CJ Stroud and whatnot. You know the type, the players that are good right off the bat. And then, there are some players that opposing teams have no idea how to game plan for and how to stop. These are guys that are revolutionary game changers who aren't just good, but will completely change how the sport is played forever, because the current way of doing things just isn't working. And Bob Hayes was one of those guys. Hayes had speed that we had never seen before from any receiver in pro football history. There is a reason he was named Bullet Bob. He played his first NFL game during that 1965 season. The year before, in 1964, he was busy winning 2 gold medals in athletics at the Summer Olympics in Tokyo, winning for the USA at the 4x100 and at the 100-meter. So you had the fastest man in the world now playing in the NFL, who could run one of the legs of the 4x100 in under 9 seconds, who could run 100 yards in under 10 seconds, and he also had incredibly good hands. Yeah, game over for defenses trying to stop this man, as you can probably tell from these highlights from 1965 alone. During that 1965 season, in his first year in the NFL, mind you, Hayes made an immediate impact, catching 46 passes for 1,003 yards and 12 touchdowns. Not only was he one of just 4 players in the NFL to have over 1,000 receiving yards in 1965, but his 12 touchdowns was the most in the NFL. Unsurprisingly, Hayes was named a Pro Bowler that season and would end his career as a Hall of Famer with 371 receptions for 7,414 yards and 71 touchdowns, including 5 seasons of 10 or more receiving touchdowns, which was almost unheard of back then. In fact, it literally was unheard of. At that point in NFL history, by the end of 1970, Hayes had more seasons with 10-plus receiving touchdowns than any other player to ever play. If you want to know how I found that out, you can do a lot of cool research with StatHead, the sponsor of today's video from the creators of Pro Football Reference. Here, all I did was go to the Player Season Finder, clicked on Players with Most Seasons Matching Criteria, then filtered to only include seasons up until 1970, as in the last time Hayes had 10 touchdowns in a season, then changed the statistical filters to only show me guys with 10-plus receiving touchdowns, and then changed the league to the NFL, and boom, you see right here that Hayes trumped everyone in that category. This footage was not sped up at all. It's that quick and that easy to use. And if you use my code JG9 at checkout, you get a 20% discount off an annual membership. Click the link in the description or pinned to the top of the comments to sign up today. Anyways, you get the idea that Bob Hayes was really good. And in the last game that the Cowboys had prior to the one in question, a 39-31 win over the San Francisco 49ers in Week 8, Hayes was unstoppable, catching 4 passes for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. So the question for the Steelers heading into their Week 9 matchup against the Cowboys was simple in theory, but way harder in practice. How the heck do you stop this man? How the heck do you stop Bob Hayes? How do you stop the man that had been torching defenses all season to the tune of nearly 22 yards per catch? Well, head coach Mike Nixon decided that the best way to stop Bob Hayes was to put cornerback Brady Keys on him. Doesn't seem like a bad idea in theory, right? Keys started every game for the Steelers in 1964 and had started every game thus far in 1965. The veteran cornerback seemed to know what he was doing and seemed to know how to make plays every now and then. I mean, the man intercepted Charlie Johnson of the St. Louis Cardinals earlier in the season, and Johnson was regarded as one of the best quarterbacks in football at that point. So the man could play. And in theory, this didn't seem like a bad idea. In theory, this isn't bad coaching. However, there was just one small problem with this strategy. There was just one teeny tiny problem with putting Brady Keys on the man you've been watching this whole time in Bob Hayes. Because there's something I forgot to mention. Yeah, Keys had a broken hand. Keys had a freaking broken hand. To be precise, he had a hairline fracture in his right hand. Sounds pretty painful. And I don't know about you, but that seems like a pretty important thing for a cornerback to have at full strength. You need to be able to tackle, and good luck tackling someone when you've got a broken hand. It's hard enough to tackle in the NFL. Now, try tackling the fastest man in the world. And that's not even an exaggeration. And try tackling him while one of your hands isn't working and having the strength to bring down someone running at full speed like that in pads. You're not going to have a good time. You need to be able to cover. And good luck getting your hand in there on 50-50 balls and deflecting passes and playing effective bump and run coverage when one of your hands is not working. Now, good luck doing all of that against one of the best receivers in football. This is like a linebacker going up against Derrick Henry, and said linebacker has a broken hand. That's how stupid this seems in theory. There is no way this can possibly work. Keys with a broken hand against the fastest man in football, and the world, mind you, at a position that heavily requires the usage of hands, seems like you're just going against science and the natural way of the world. But that was the game plan. When the teams met down in the Cotton Bowl on November 14th, 1965, with not a whole lot to play for, seeing as the Cowboys were 3-5 and the Steelers were an abysmal 2-6, and neither team had much of a chance at winning the East and making it to the NFL Championship, that was what the Steelers were going to do. Line Brady Keys up against the man you've been watching this whole time in Bob Hayes. I'm not even going to make you wait any longer or pretend anything else happened besides exactly what you'd expect. Let's jump ahead to the end of the fourth quarter with the game tied at 17 apiece. You're going to be shocked to find out that this is what happened.
Don Meredith looking for Bobby Hayes. He has him. Watch this play. He is in there for a touchdown. Dallas 24, Pittsburgh 17. Less than 2 minutes remaining.
I'm so shocked, guys. I'm stunned. Who could have possibly seen this coming except, I don't know, literally anyone with a working brain? Anyone. The pass from Don Meredith went to Bob Hayes, and Brady Keys missed the tackle. Because of course he did. Because Hayes was running fast, and Keys had a freaking broken hand. Hayes gets into the end zone, the Cowboys get their touchdown from 28 yards out, and the Cowboys win the game by a final score of 24-17. It was that kind of day for Hayes on Keys, because to say that Hayes had his way would be putting it lightly. Hayes led the Cowboys with 5 receptions, and he also led the Cowboys with 95 yards receiving. Really held them in check there, guys. Really did your job. Bob Hayes was ruthless all day. He was a menace, and it's not surprising, seeing as he even knew that his assignment in Brady Keys was dealing with a broken hand. So it was going to be impossible to stop him. And after the game, all the talk was about just what the heck the Steelers were thinking, putting Keys on Hayes, considering the circumstances. Keys said in the post-game presser, "He's fast. Everybody knows that, but he wasn't beating me. It wasn't that I couldn't keep up with him. I couldn't tackle him. Today, he wasn't afraid of me." Yeah, no crap he wasn't afraid of you. You had a broken hand. It's like the battle in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where the knight was clearly disfigured. So there was nothing to fear and never any doubt in terms of who would win the fight. Even other players on the Steelers were confused as to what the heck the strategy was, with safety Bob Sherman saying that Bobby Hayes got back at us. Brady Keys, who was covering him, has a hairline fracture of his right hand, but he played anyway. I don't think it takes an English major to interpret those comments and read between the lines there. Of all the ways that opposing teams tried to stop Bob Hayes, and there were many of them, this was, by far, the dumbest of the bunch. And when it came to the game between these two teams behind me right here in the Steelers and the Cowboys, you're probably wondering, why the heck didn't the Steelers just play zone defense? Why they put a man on Bob Hayes to begin with? Why not play zone? Well, zone defense wasn't really a thing back in the 1960s. It was a pretty novel concept. The only reason it came about, mainly, was because of none other than Bob Hayes, because he was so fast that no team knew how to neutralize him man-to-man. So teams started playing zone defense specifically because Bob Hayes was so much faster than everyone else, which isn't surprising considering the fact that he won the 100-meter as the fastest man in the world. Maybe if zone defense existed back in 1965, the Steelers wouldn't have had this problem, but that was not an option during the scheme. Look, I credit Brady Keys for his toughness all the way and his desire to play. I do. But he never should have been put in this spot in the first place. Trying to have a man cover the fastest and arguably the best receiver in football when said man is clearly injured is not going to bode well for you. It just isn't. Maybe it will bode well in your dreams, but in reality, not a chance. There's a reason the Steelers were 2-12 in 1965, and Nixon never coached another game again, and the team didn't win another game for the remainder of the season. And it's pure and utter stupidity like this decision. Because on this day for the Steelers in 1965, I think it's safe to say that trusting Brady Keys with a broken hand was not the key to success. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.